I'm Hanna.
And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
And in the wise words of Bodies, 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 today's episode is a podcast about hanging out with your smartest and funniest podcast friends. So today we are joined by Andrew, host of the Revisionist Almanac. Hello.
Hello. I don't think I'm the funniest or the smartest person you'll have on, but I do appreciate the ego boost, so I'll take it. Thank you.
Well, you will be our most prepared.
That is
according to your Blue Sky
true.
Account. So
I've got about 12 pages of notes over here, so I'm ready. The opposite of what you're doing over there, Matt.
Oh, I know. I'm
Literally.
off the dome, but I get 12 pages of notes up in here.
Well, Andrew, tell us about your show.
Sure. Yeah. So it's called the Revisionist Almanac, and you can find me on every place that there's a podcast to stream, on YouTube as well. You can find me on all the handles, Rev Almanac on all the socials. And it's an interactive monthly podcast where two guests join me every single month, and we dive into a particular year, and that Oscars year. And we watch as many movies as we can, upwards of maybe 50 movies in a given year. What we then do is we take the actual Oscar winners. We then give our own nominees and our own winner picks based on what we should have been nominated and won. Then we put the actual winners up head-to-head against our picks online, and whatever wins the online vote goes into the Revisionist Almanac. So it's sort of taking the Oscars, which I think are a cool thing, but they're a very flawed system, and it's letting a little bit of time percolate for all the movies to sort of settle into culture and figure out what's the actual best movies, because as we all know, it's all about campaigning and dumping money into whatever shit is popular in that moment, and it takes a few years, and then you go, wait a minute, that won Best Picture and not the other movie. And so that's what my show is there to do, is just try to correct as many wrongs as can be corrected.
Yeah, it's very fun. As someone who does love an award show moment, I've been listening to the ones that I was alive for and recall. So I've been listening to those and having a lot of fun with it. It definitely has helped my road trips out to Pittsburgh immensely.
So I have to ask, you're saying 50 movies a month. So how many did you watch this past year? You're on Letterboxd?
Oh, I am. And it feels, I've been asked this question. It feels like a brag. I promise it's not. I don't try to make a point to tell people how many movies I watch, but I do get asked often. Last year I hit around 1,100. It's a disgusting number.
No, I'm jealous because I tell people I hit over 100 last year, and people look at me like
Shocked.
I'm crazy. And I was very proud of hitting 100, and I was I was at the theater a bunch of times, 1,100. So, I'm impressed. I love it.
So I'm just to show you right now, I'm pulling up my Letterboxd. I'm at 81 so far in January. What are we on, the 23rd? So I'm just cooking. I'm cooking.
I'm so impressed by this.
It should have been me.
Matt, you need a work from home job. That's how I manage anything.
No, that's incredible. Does it get old? I guess it can't. I love movies so much, but 1,100.
I mean, it's a lot. There's a burnout aspect probably at some point, but I'm a psychopath for movies, so this just kind of keeps me going, honestly.
Yeah. You got that AMC list?
I do.
Me too.
I've got every streaming app under the sun. So I have some nefarious ways to get a hold of some things that aren't so easy to find, and I've got a giant movie collection to my right with 2,000 DVDs. So I got anything I need anytime.
I want to be you when I grow up.
Well,
I promise you don't.
Do you have any all-time favorite movies? I know that's so hard, especially when you're watching that much, but
yeah, so it's funny, you sent me some icebreakers, which I really do appreciate. It's nice to always get some icebreakers out of the way. And you one of those was, do I have a list of my all-time favorite movies? And because I'm sick in the head about movies, if you go to my Letterboxd, I've got 500 plus lists of things, including I have a top 500 favorites movie list that I sort of I rearrange every so often. But yes, you could go to my Letterboxd and see my top 500 favorite movies if you really wanted to go down the rabbit hole.
That's so funny.
Most people have a top 5.
What's your Letterboxd? I gotta find this.
So it's Corns, ACORNS 13. That's my personal Letterboxd, and you can
go follow him.
Yeah, everybody.
I'm going to. Yeah, I'll follow after.
I've got some friends who have found me on Letterboxd, and they're like, wow, I just spent a day going down all your shit and all your lists, and it was an experience.
That's so funny. See, I just made it this year because I didn't have any room on my phone until I got a new phone like a week ago. So I am brand new to this, but I love her already. So I'll make sure to follow you. That's so funny.
I mean, your whole feed's just going to be him, though.
Yeah, I know.
It probably will.
Well, thinking of the horror genre specifically, do you have any particular favorite horror movies or at least horror subgenres that you would share?
Yeah, so I would say I sort of circled my top 5 favorite horror films, and they're kind of cliche, so it's like they're gonna sound generic because everyone picks these, but like if they're great movies, they're great movies. I'm gonna go Halloween from 1978. That was like the first movie I saw way too young, and it scared the shit out of me, and it just stuck with me forever. And I became like a John Carpenter fan at like 10.
It's the best time to do it.
Definitely the best time to become a Carpenter fan. Kubrick's Shining is just like an immaculate movie of scare and dread and fear. Again, John Carpenter, 1982, The Thing. That's like perfection right there. And then The Exorcist and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre really fucked me up as a kid. Again, I watched a lot of horror movies way too young, and they have all imprinted themselves on my psyche.
No, those are good picks.
Yeah.
Especially, I was really hoping to hear Texas Chainsaw Massacre because I have said on this podcast before, but I think that's like maybe one of the best like American films ever made, one of the most important films made. And like I feel like it doesn't always get the love it deserves, at least maybe from my wife. I don't know. But
I saw it for the first time when we started this podcast, so it took about 3 months of watching movies to be like, oh yeah, no, you're right.
It does get shit on a lot nowadays, I feel like, by younger audiences. But I'm from an area of the country in the Midwest, and I like grew up in a town that had like 100 people total. Ooh. And so the Texas Chainsaw Massacre felt very real. Like I felt like I could probably have encountered people that would be in that scenario. And so, yeah, it just messed me up as a, I don't know, probably 11 or 12-year-old when I saw it.
I understand. That's why, like I said, I'm just happy to hear it. I think it just like is a leg above, especially like people try to throw it in the slasher genre, and it kind of isn't. It's like kind of, to me, feels like it's its own thing. But I don't need to gush about Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, now that I like reflect on it a lot more, since I have more distance from watching it for the first time, I just love how gritty and textured that movie is. Like, texture goes a long way with us. Mm-hmm. So, like, compared to half the movies we watch for the show or period, like, stunning.
It's like
and
the
colors
prettiest,
are stunning. Yeah.
Made for nothing on a camcorder,
that's the thing.
basically.
It's like, it's proof you don't need a real budget to make something really profound and that lasts with you. And to your other point of the subgenre, that's a tough one for me, at least, because I feel like I like dabbling in all of the different subgenres because they're all so unique and everything. But I probably at this moment in time, and it's because the substance is sort of lingering in my recent peripheral memory, but body horror has been one that I've kind of like been digging into the most lately. I've been really into Brandon Cronenberg's works, his dad's David Cronenberg's works, and so I've kind of like been mining through as much body horror as I can lately. I don't know where the two of you stand on body horror in totality, but I know that the substance is a pretty popular one amongst people right now.
Yeah,
no, I mean, we love The Substance.
Yeah, The Substance was incredible. For me, I struggle with body horror because I do think there are enough examples of it being used really gratuitously. But I think The Substance, for example, uses it so well because it's very integral to the plot and the movie's overall meaning. So that goes a long way with me. I just can't always look, but, you know, if it's used in the right way, as vague as that is, no, I'm for it.
I think there's like maybe a misunderstanding of what body horror is, because I definitely think like Cronenberg is a better example of what it is and The Substance is versus maybe something, I actually haven't seen this movie, but like something like Martyrs. You know much about that movie?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I went down the French New Wave horror. Oh yes. And
I'm not, and I haven't seen it, but I know enough about it. I know about it for pop culture reasons.
Yes, I know.
To say like, and I know that it's like good, but it feels like it is more on the gratuitous, less meaningful side of body horror, where I think a lot of Cronenberg's works, at least the ones that I've seen, there is something more to it than just like gross on screen. Like he's of trying to evoke another emotion beyond that, and I think the substance nails that.
Yeah.
So, you following me, Andrew? Or am I?
I'm with you. I'm 100% with where you're going. And I don't know if you've seen his son Brandon Cronenberg's film Possessor from 2020.
We have.
Oh yeah, we love Possessor.
Okay, that movie's incredible. Like that's my kind of body horror right there, where it really makes you question things far beyond just like what's a gross out moment.
Oh yeah, we really liked that movie.
The movie made me feel icky.
Yes.
Icky internally and externally, like. But I just want to make sure I wasn't talking about my ass or talking out my ass, excuse me.
Talking about my ass.
Talking out my ass about two different types of body horror, but
all right,
I feel vindicated, so.
Yes. Well, last quick icebreaker question before we get into today's movie. Are there any particular horror movies or horror performances that you think deserved an Oscar nom in the past that didn't get one?
So, such a great question, by the way. Glad you asked it. And you probably saw, Hanna, that I posted on social media about this, I think over the weekend. And I was just kind of like, I was sort of polling the audience, some of my followers, to kind of see what the general consensus was for what people felt was the answer. There's one that I think we all sort of unanimously think is the most egregious, especially in recent memory. And I know it's one that, Hanna, you even mentioned yourself, and it's Toni Collette in Hereditary. That's the Academy will never live down that omission. That one's as bad as it has gotten for me. But I'll throw out a few others really quickly. Florence Pugh in Midsommar,
Agree.
I think, is equally as great. If we're talking about like films that I think deserve much more recognition, Get Out, Jordan Peele's film, it obviously won original screenplay, which was sort of like throwing it a bone, but it probably should have won Best Picture in my opinion. And then there's this great film called Cure, which I've got the criterion right here by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. A remarkable horror film that I won't spoil anything about it, but you should check it out. And then I already talked about it. 1982's The Thing, which I think is maybe the best horror film ever made.
So Cure is on my list. I have a run. Ooh. I'm sure everyone does, of something to watch, and I've heard of it, and I put it on there, and I don't think I looked into anything else. I just saw people back when I was kind of more following film Twitter stuff talk about it. So
don't read a synopsis. Don't do anything. Just watch it completely blind. You'll be satisfied.
I did hear I forget what year it was, where in your nominations you put Raw and Train to Busan, and I was like, fuck yes, because we love Raw, and I feel like Raw does not get the love it deserves. That film, I actually watched it the first time we were all under the influence, and so I was like, I don't even know how to read subtitles right now, I'm just not here, and it still really left an impact, so several years later we were like, we should watch that without marijuana. Actually, and shit, that movie is so good. Lives up.
It was good both times for me.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're part of the preaching the gospel of Raw, because I try to get everybody to watch that, and
I feel bad though because I was so close to picking Garance Marillier, who plays the lead in that role. I almost picked her as my revised Best Actress, but I sort of chickened out at the last moment and went with the safe pick Emma Stone in La La Land, but. I was really trying to push people to check out Raw because, like you said, it doesn't get talked about enough. I think Titan, the other film by Julia Ducournau, is probably her more known work, but even that one's still not something I don't think many people have seen.
We've seen it.
It's fucking weird.
I like it. I don't like it as much as Raw, though. Personally,
yeah, I'm with you.
Raw was a jaw-dropping movie for me, especially that ending.
Especially because we found it by accident.
Yeah, it was on Netflix.
Yeah, we were just scrolling and then found it, and we were avoiding studying in college for finals week, I think. Mm-hmm. We were like, sure, France.
So we smoked some weed and watched Raw.
And I'm glad you like Train to Busan, too, because that's
so good.
Probably the coolest zombie movie in the last 10 years or more. I mean, it kind of stands alone in its genre.
Yeah.
I agree. It's easily it's top 3 zombie movie for me.
Top 2.
It's top 2 for you. You're right. Fine. Night of the Living Dead number 1. Night of the Living Dead number 1 and Train to Busan number 2.
I say this on this pod all the time. Comparatively, I'm a horror newbie, a horror baby. So there are plenty of films that I have not seen. But from what I have seen in the genre, I really like Train to Busan. I'm going to
We can do
Leave it as number 2 currently.
We can do a zombie month.
We already covered the best one, so sucks.
Well, we did a vampire month. You've never seen 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
That's like
gosh.
I know.
And there's the new one coming out this year, so like it times out perfectly for you.
Yeah, don't embarrass me, Matt. Don't call me out like that. But we are going to cover it since the new one's coming out.
Are we going to cover 28 Weeks Later too?
I don't know, bitch. That's not a me problem for right now. What we should talk about, though, is today's movie, which is Black Swan, a 2010 film directed by Darren Aronofsky, written by Mark Heyman, Andres Hines, and John McLaughlin. I don't know. Starring Natalie Portman, with Vincent Cassel, Mila Kunis, Barbara Hershey, and Winona Ryder in supporting roles. This movie fucking slaps. I'll just start there. But some more background. Natalie Portman, for this role, had trained for well over a year as a dancer to prepare and lost over 20 pounds. When she first started training, she was paying out of pocket because the film hadn't found investors yet.
Whoa.
Hardcore shit.
I mean, it was worth it. This is maybe her best performance, so...
Yeah. Aronofsky attributed the film getting made at all to her dedication.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Good for her.
There was a lot of controversy with her dancing in the film. Basically, her dance double had since come out, Sarah Lane, and said that she didn't feel like she got enough credit for her dancing in the film. Other people obviously had that feeling as well. Darren Aronofsky later kind of went through shot by shot to do the math about how much was Natalie Portman on screen, just to prove a point. And it is on screen. She's on screen 80 to 90% of the time dancing. It's allegedly Natalie Portman. But obviously, her dance double should get the credit. So, hi, Sarah.
Yeah, you're getting credit on our podcast. But also, like, stuntmen never get credit, and that's like what she is in this situation.
It's unfortunate.
You're an unsung hero. You know,
it's funny because I'm old enough to remember when the movie came out and like the campaign push and the Oscars that year, and it was definite at the time. I do remember them very vividly painting the picture that Portman was effectively doing everything. So I guess I could see why her double was maybe a little aggrieved by the situation, but Portman was doing so much work in the movie, so it's hard for me to knock what she did.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if she's doing less than 80% of the dancing, the fact that she's doing any of it in addition to the overall performance that she's putting on, like, she still deserved her nominations and wins. So, yes, we should credit, obviously, her dance double, but kudos to her for all the training that she did, because it's extremely impressive.
And I was going to say, like, this movie is so much more than dancing. And, like, I don't feel like I've seen that many Natalie Portman performances that really, like, move me. And it felt like in this that she pulled something out of her that no one had seen before. And, like, that is commendable. And it's, like, very worth she did the work to get that nom, is what I'm trying to say. Like, and I want more of this from her. I'm kind of disappointed. I feel like I haven't seen too much, but I guess we had that one sci-fi movie,
Annihilation.
Yes. Sorry, I could not think of it.
I love Annihilation.
I knew the exact one you were talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a very good movie.
She was in May, December more recently too, and I know that was a buzzy film.
That was a weird movie. That really upset some people I knew who
yeah. I get it, but also I did watch it. And I was entertained.
Was she good in it, though? Or, like, she wasn't Black Swan good in it?
I mean, no. I don't think a lot of people are like Natalie Portman and Black Swan good. I think that's like a career high performance, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, I'm saying some actors pull that performance every time. Like, their level is just always up there. Like, for her, it's, like, more
she
kind
has
of
a
wavy,
weird,
I think.
like Andrew was saying, just a weird filmography. Like, she's in fucking Thor.
Good point.
Or the Star Wars prequels. And
Yeah. Well, speaking of Natalie Portman, she did sustain many injuries while filming, including a dislocated rib, concussion, and then she had injured her left toe many times. I actually saw that they referred to it as portmanteau or portmanteau because she kept breaking her toe over again, or like injuring it, and it needed to be like restrapped or like, secured.
So she had her method acting moment here. That's what it feels like.
Not on purpose. But they had also said, kind of within the spirit of the themes of the film and the plot, that Aronofsky would sometimes try and pit Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis against each other. So sometimes he would keep them separate as much as possible, which, I mean, we've seen that on other films that we've discussed as well. But I guess sometimes he would also text them and be like, oh my gosh, did you see how well she did today? Like, that was such an amazing performance, to try and get under their skin, like her character. But it kind of backfired because they were friends, and Mila Kunis was, discovered for this film specifically because Natalie Portman was like, hey, she cool. So it didn't really work.
Directors are so silly. I love them.
He tried.
Like, it's that works. We all know Spielberg did it. That's the one I always bring up for Saving Private Ryan, and it worked there. But, like, not everyone's Spielberg. Even Aronofsky. Right. I can't say his name.
Aronofsky.
He's got an interesting track record with his career.
He does.
It's a real roller coaster of good and bad for me.
The things that I do like. And then there are other things where I'm like, I don't want to see that, so I'm going to not.
You can't say he doesn't take swings, though. And, like,
that's true.
I love that. I think that's so commendable. I've talked to Hanna before about how sometimes I like a movie that takes a swing and is imperfect more than a movie that I think is, like, it nails everything, but is, like, kind of just not taking any risks,
Yeah, I have no religious affiliation, but when I watch his film Noah, I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting approach to biblical movies with, like, rock creatures and all sorts of crazy shit in there. I'm like, oh, okay, he's going for something. I don't know what it is, but he's going for something.
I've never even seen that one.
Well, Mother is also really interesting.
Yeah, I'm a mother supporter, even though there's a lot of mother haters out there.
Yeah, I've seen the hate, but I also really liked it. I really liked it thematically. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Didn't watch it yet. That was one Hanna watched when I was at work. So
heck yeah, bitch, work from home life.
Someday. It's too much good stuff to watch.
I know.
And there's too much stuff. We do so much horror stuff that when I'm going to watch something that we're not covering for the pod, I'm not going to watch another horror movie. You know? I know Mother's something beyond, but I get too many other things.
Have either of you seen The Wrestler?
No, and it's on my list. We put that on our films to watch list because I've heard about it forever and ever and ever. And he has talked about that as kind of almost being a companion piece to Black Swan, and how he almost tried to make like a movie with like wrestling and ballet kind of in one, and then was like, that doesn't work. I must split these. So I was like, okay, well, now I really want to watch that.
Okay, I had to make sure The Wrestler was not the fighter, because there's too many movies named something similar. And I was like, I've seen The Fighter, which I don't think is considered very good. Oh, well, you know what? I didn't realize that was him either, so that's on my list. Oh, that is on our list. Yeah. We're good to go.
I think it's my favorite Aronofsky if I had to kind of steal my thunder from his other movies.
Okay.
That's high praise.
Okay. Yeah, because this one, I quite like this one.
Hannah's putting on the list right now.
I mean, it was like mentally on the list, but not physically, Okay, so last fun fact. This is why we brought you specifically as a guest on, because it was the 5th horror film to ever be nominated at the Oscars for Best Picture, after The Exorcist, Jaws, Silence of the Lambs, and The Sixth Sense. Out of those 5, only Silence of the Lambs had won. The 6th ever to be nominated was Get Out. And the 7th, which we have this year, is The Substance. So very exciting.
I know it's not going to happen, but how insane would it be if The Substance won?
That'd be fucking crazy.
Just think about it.
It'd be amazing. I mean, we're going to get Amelia Perez, which I don't want to talk about at all.
No.
But
I'm going to fucking scream.
Can we at least get Demi? Just get Demi the Oscar. That's all I'm asking.
Yes. Like, I would love Farjad to get the director win, but I know that's not happening. So this movie has to get something above the line, because it's probably going to win some of the technical shit underneath. But Demi Moore would be awesome. Awesome win.
That would make my night.
Yeah, that would be very exciting.
And she doesn't even have to win the revisionist version, but like she can win the. If she just wins the real one,
will win that one eventually.
I can promise you The Substance, when I eventually cover that year, The Substance is easily my favorite film of 2024. It's not even a contest.
Whoa.
It's up there, but I don't know if it's actually my favorite. I can't decide.
Yours is Wicked, right?
Oh,
Absolutely not.
we're not allowed to talk about Wicked on
We're
the podcast.
not allowed to talk about it because
Everyone loves it, and I feel crazy.
we're controversial.
I feel insane. My mom didn't like it either, okay?
My wife's obsessed, so I've watched it more times than I can count already.
I wasn't a hater. I went in being like, I'm going to give it a shot. The opening shot, I was like, this looks really cool. And then it just lost me. So,
And I really like Wicked as a stage show. So I do have that bias going in that I was either going to love it because it was the same shit, the same songs that I love, or I was going to hate it because it wasn't as good as a stage show. And a lot of musical movies I have that problem with. And I had that problem, but I also had numerous other problems, like the fact that it's so washed out. It's like unreal. And the editing kind of takes away the flow of the choreography. I could go on for a while.
I know we're going to get in trouble. You can't. We're going to get more bad reviews on. Someone gave us a 1-star review on Spotify and it's tanked our score. So
pedantic.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Well,
I don't know.
Just
People
gotta
going to
twist
say a
it.
4.4. I don't know.
okay, well, what I would do is if you want to hear us bitch about that, find us on Blue Sky. Damn, I almost said Blue Sky because you always say it wrong, you ass. Okay, well, find us there where we'll maybe bitch more. But for now, we do love musicals, so don't hate me. So obviously, but going into this watch, we'd all seen this movie before. You'd probably already seen it, but then I know you covered it, and Natalie was your winner. I know that.
Spoilers.
Yes.
Well, sorry.
Yeah. That was our that was the debut episode of the show. So it was all the way back in January 24, and myself, the guest, we unanimously agreed that Portman was deserving of the win. So she didn't even have to go to an online vote. It was just sort of decided in the room.
Yeah.
She's so far above everyone else. So this was a good one to go back to.
Yeah, and I think if you had put it up for an online vote, she would have won anyway. So
100%.
Yeah.
And who did win this year?
Her.
She did win.
Yes.
She did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, his concept, like, if you guys agree and the Academy agrees, then they automatically go in, or is it just if you all agree?
Yeah, so if myself and my 2 guests or 3 guests, depending on how many I have that month, if all of us unanimously agree with whatever actually won, it then just skips an online vote entirely. So it doesn't happen very often. I think it's happened 6 times over the course of like 14 episodes now. But if we all feel collectively that that's the best performance, we don't even waste time going to a vote. It's only when there's some dissension between what we think versus what the Oscars think.
That's what I thought. Okay. Well, because the most recent one, there was more than one that... There
were 2. Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea was a lock, and then Viola Davis in Fences also got a lock.
I actually haven't seen Fences.
You see Manchester by the Sea, though.
But that movie fucked me up the first time I saw it. I was depressed for like a month. It was like a really bad depressive episode because that movie affected me so much. But I've watched it multiple times since then because I'm like, yo, this movie's so good. And he is so good. Like, hate that I liked the controversial Man of the Year, but... damn, he was so good, and
it's hard to argue with what he's doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can go into our 15-second summaries.
Oh, we're there already. Damn. Okay.
We leave a chat for how long, Buster Brown?
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Of course I do. I hate going first.
Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. Cool.
And
you're doing this off the dome, right?
Oh, I am.
Yeah, we
sometimes
do.
Some people write it down. You're allowed to write it down, but
I wrote it down for sure.
You're allowed to. We're just at the point of like, I just try to get out whatever I can. I don't know what people like. I don't know if they like it. Comment. I don't know.
That's why ours are always like pretty horrible because we're like themes maybe.
Because sometimes we'll do one in like 2 seconds. But okay.
All right.
Go for it. You ready? Yeah, Natalie Portman needs to basically like kill the part of her that's annoying and innocent, and she does. Oh, sorry.
Annoying.
She's a little annoying.
Well.
Sorry, that is actually so inappropriate for what this movie is, but that's why it's a 15-second summary. You know?
Dude. You're such a shit.
Andrew, do you want to go next? Make Hanna go last.
I put some thought into this. Hopefully I don't go over 15 seconds. I didn't time myself. You ready?
All right. Go.
Okay. Nina, a young, innocent ballerina, desperate to please both her overbearing mother, the demanding director of Swan Lake, by proving she has what it takes to inhabit not just the good, virtuous white swan, but the dark, evil black swan. What lengths will she go to give the perfect performance?
See, that's like a
beautiful.
yeah, that's like the IMDb.
He got the back of the box summary.
I worked hard on that one.
See, I just go in and I whatever comes out, and sometimes it's not good. But
yeah, most of the time it's not good.
Are you ready, Hannah?
Yep.
Let's see if you can do better. Go.
Dancer struggles between embracing her full self or the pressure to maintain a perfect image.
Ooh, that's basically what I said, but better.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why I teed you up by saying it worse.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, well, why don't you give us the full summary?
All right, Andrew, bear with me. It's going to take a minute. I'm going to read it really fast, so if you just want to mute me, do it. Oh, hold up. I lost there it is. Okay.
Sir.
So, Nina, a young dancer with the New York City Ballet, lives with her mother, Erica. The company is opening the season with Swan Lake. After forcing the current prima ballerina, Beth, into retirement, artistic director Thomas Leroy announces he's looking for a new dancer for the dual roles of the innocent and fragile White Swan and the sensual and dark Black Swan. Nina auditions and gives a flawless performance as the White Swan, but fails to embody the Black Swan, causing Thomas to dismiss her. The next day, Nina asks Thomas to reconsider. He forcibly kisses her, and she bites him and runs out of his office. Later, Nina is surprised to find she has received the lead role. At a gala celebrating the new season, Beth and Nina get into an altercation over Beth's replacement. The next day, Nina hears Beth had been hit by a car, possibly attempting suicide. Nina visits Beth in the hospital and is distraught to see her injured legs, meaning she'll never dance again. During rehearsals, Thomas tells Nina to observe a newcomer, Lily, who has a physical resemblance to Nina, but also an uninhibited quality Nina lacks. Nina has hallucinations and finds scratch marks on her back. One night, despite Erica's objections, Nina accepts Lily's invitation to go out for drinks. Lily offers Nina Molly, which Nina accepts. While intoxicated, Nina flirts with men at the bar and Lily as well. After the two dance at a nightclub, they go back to Nina's apartment and have sex. The next morning, Nina wakes up disoriented and alone and realizes she is late for rehearsal. At rehearsal, Nina sees Lily dancing as the Black Swan and confronts her about their sexual encounter. Lily has no idea what she's talking about because it becomes clear that Nina imagined or hallucinated all of it. Nina becomes convinced Lily intends to replace her, especially after learning that Thomas has made Lily her alternate. Nina's mysterious injuries and hallucinations grow more severe. Erica grows concerned about her well-being and attempts to prevent Nina from performing on opening night. After a physical confrontation with her mother, Nina arrives at the theater where she finds Lily preparing to take the stage because Nina has been absent. Nina convinces Thomas to allow her to take back her role. Towards the end of the ballet's second act, Nina is distracted by hallucination and loses her balance during a lift, causing a dancer to drop her. Nina returns to the dressing room and finds Lily prepared to take her place. She confronts her, and Lily appears to transform into a doppelganger of Nina. The two fight, break a mirror, and then Nina stabs her doppelganger with a shard of glass, killing her and breaking the illusion. Nina hides Lily's body and takes the stage. She dances flawlessly and seemingly begins to turn into the Black Swan, her arms covered in feathers. In her dressing room, Nina gets ready for the final act, but is interrupted by Lily, who congratulates Nina for her performance. Nina sees the mirror still broken, but all other evidence of the stabbing is gone, including the body. She looks down and pulls out a piece of glass from her abdomen, realizing she stabbed herself and not Lily. Despite her injury, she dances the final act of the ballet with blood gradually seeping through her costume. The show ends with her jumping off the set onto a hidden mattress to simulate the White Swan throwing herself off a cliff. Everyone erupts into thunderous applause while Thomas, Lily, and the other dancers gather to congratulate Nina backstage. Thomas eventually realizes Nina is bleeding and shouts for help, asking Nina what happened. Nina calmly replies, "I felt it. It was perfect," as the screen fades to white.
I'm just going to call you out real quick.
Damn.
Thomas.
Oh
He's
my
French.
God, it's Thomas.
I just let you go that whole time.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm so embarrassed. I don't care. We love
that
the
was
French.
a lot of words.
Yeah, I don't know how to cut these down, and we complain. Hannah complains every time, and I'm like,
That you say too much.
I try, and it just seems like things are important to say.
I'm more impressed with your breath control. That's a lot to get out in one. Yeah.
Maybe I should be a singer.
I don't know about that, Chief. I've heard you sing. So we're gonna definitely get into what makes this a good movie or not, but in my opinion,
a good movie.
It's a good movie. Sorry, like newsflash.
For sure.
So we'll talk about what elements of the film lead us to that conclusion. But first, since we are a horror movie podcast, I do want to talk about, is this movie scary? We'll just start off with that.
You coming to me?
Yeah.
So I'll say in the middle of this, well, beforehand, I was like, it was kind of weird that this was classified as a horror because it's like not exactly. And then like an hour in, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm so scared. And it's like a different type of fear. But I remember feeling just so upset through so many scenes and so like concerned. And I was like, it counts. We'll take it.
Yeah, it definitely.
What about you?
It really slow plays the horror elements and there's like signs from the very beginning that she's hallucinating and she's kind of an unreliable narrator and the POV is kind of going in that direction, and then it just kind of adds and compounds on top of each other as the film goes along. I don't know if I'd classify it as scary like for my taste, but it's definitely in the horror genre, and there's enough stuff that we'll probably get into that like makes me squeamish, and
Yes.
like I can handle like a beheading just fine, but seeing like a toenail broken or like skin coming off a fingernail, that's fuck that. That's too much for me.
I felt the same way. We count our hides and screams on this show. We've had a lot in the last year that didn't really get that many. This movie got me. I hid like 3+ times. We had a couple like oohs, not like screaming, you know, but some audible gasps and sound effects. But yeah, the hiding, I had to hide multiple times. It's like when she rips her nail and her skin off.
Cuticle.
That just like gives me so much ick. I cannot do that.
Mine, though, interestingly enough, we talked about the idea of like a narrative scare versus a crafted scare in our, what was it, top scariest movies of all time according to science episode. And I thought I was struggling recently for us to make a TikTok to come up with versions of what I consider a narrative scare, which is like, it's not a jump scare. It's not scare via the camera moving or setting something up. And I was like, oh, Black Swan is the perfect example of a narrative scare because I'm not scared by what they're trying to show me. I'm scared by the situation Natalie Portman is in. And that's like what really like got under my skin in this movie. Like some of the grossness was there, but it was more like the mounting pressure and this like clear explosion we were heading towards is how I should put it. That had me really on edge.
I mean, literally one of the scariest scenes to me is like her actually performing the night of on stage. Like a person doing ballet was terrifying for me, but mostly because obviously we can put ourselves in that situation and like be empathetic for that. I think it's like the secondhand embarrassment of like waiting for something bad to happen to her and how horrifying that would be, especially because she has such a desire for control and perfection. So yeah, that element really got to me. Even just like cutting nails, this movie made scary. Being on scissors. A high surface, just like waiting for her to jump off the side when she like takes a bit to like fall off when he's directing her to the first time they practice the scene. Like the fact that things like that were giving me a heart attack, I was like, damn, he nailed this.
And weirdly enough, though, while feeling all this, I also was like smiling ear to ear for most of this movie at the same time, which was a very confusing feeling. Which is how I know it's really good, because I was like, I'm loving this. I'm having so much fun. I also feel sick to my stomach. Like,
yeah, there aren't too many movies I remember seeing in the theater and like remembering exactly the moment. I'm definitely somebody who like has a visual memory, so I can picture things. I can picture seeing this movie in the theater in 2010. I remember the discomfort I had like seeing it in a darkened room on the big screen. So especially, we'll probably get into it, but like Barbara Hershey's mother character, the whole dynamic there really messes with me, and it sort of flips on its head by the end. But like everything that's happening, the dynamic between the mother and the daughter is really unnerving. That's kind of like my general takeaway from the movie. Just it's unnerving and tense. Just kind of this low underlying simmer throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I very much agree about the mother-daughter relationship, and I mean, it's something I'm going to talk about later. But I mean, just to personalize that a little bit, I have a lot of, so I work in mental health, and I'm kind of surrounded by, between that, and then I have some friendships with people who have had some eating disorders, and I've heard a lot of times with people with eating disorders, they've described that as like a way to control something in their life when they feel like their life is out of control. And so I really, when I see that relationship between her and her mom, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like she has no control over what she's doing. She can't even cut her nails by herself. She can't get dressed by herself. Her mom is making her meals. Her mom's deciding when she can or cannot go out, and she's an adult woman. So I was really seeing like the control narrative through that relationship really hardcore.
And I think that's like, just saying that, when I was joking earlier about her annoying self, it's not really her annoying self. It's like her controlled, maybe like almost abused by her mom self. I think that word might be a little too far in this situation. Maybe not.
I don't know.
And it's like basically becoming her own person. So when I'm saying her annoying version, that's not really what I mean. I'll backtrack. It's more that she is becoming her full self versus the shell of herself that she is. So, sorry. I gotta protect myself.
The more I watch the movie, though, I find myself questioning reality throughout the whole thing. I don't know if the two of you did, but like he's planting the clues throughout the whole film. But every time I go back and do rewatches, I'm just wondering how much of what I'm seeing is actually happening and how much of it is what Natalie Portman's Nina is seeing in her head, and it's maybe a little bit distorted from actual reality. And the mother kind of symbolizes that for me with the way I'm sympathetic to her by the end, and it's a weird turn where I'm like, wait a minute, is the mother as overbearing? Like, she obviously is, but is it to the degree that Nina is portraying it as, or is it Nina's like so dependent on it just for her own need? I don't know. It's a question that Aronofsky doesn't answer easily.
And he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love an unreliable narrator because all of this movie could be real. None of it could be real. Any mix in between. And you kind of just have to decide, and you're going to project yourself onto it.
Yeah.
Which is what good art should do.
And I feel like, I did that with this, and I did that with Smile too, where I was like, the mom is just so abusive and controlling. And we had another guest on for Smile too who was like, I actually saw it differently, where like her mom was maybe trying to support her and was like, you're not ready, but like if you commit to this, you kind of have to do it. I don't know if you saw Smile too, but yeah, so...
Honestly, I was thinking about Smile 2 being a very weird parallel to this movie that has some similarities, and maybe is why Smile 2 is good, or better than Smile 1.
Better than Smile 1, yeah.
But, okay, we're already into it. What else we got on your list?
Yeah, so we can talk more about, the filming itself, or the elements of the film that, besides script, I would say, that make it a good movie.
Where do I begin?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say the movie's very good looking, and I'll touch on one thing that I really liked is that it's good looking, and yet he shoots it in a way that's very claustrophobic throughout the film. Where at first when I was watching, I was like, Hannah, I was like, are my glasses dirty? Like, I almost felt like I couldn't get my eyes adjusted to what I was looking at, and I think that was very on purpose. It's like immediately created a sense of unease for me, or like that I was in a space where I wasn't supposed to be almost. And like it did feel like tight, especially in their apartment. Everything felt tight and controlled, and that like suffocating almost. So did you guys feel that at all?
100%. The way he uses the camera just kept coming back to me. The camera felt like its own character to a larger degree in a lot of the film. Like the way he shoots things on the stage when the actual ballet's happening, the way it's like circularly spinning around her, and it feels like you're not watching from the audience, you're very much watching from that perspective. And then 100% you're right on the claustrophobia of the space in the apartment. I think this is probably the best movie Aronofsky's done in terms of like visual style. Like I already said, I prefer The Wrestler, but that's much more like shot like a documentary to a large degree. And this one, I think his visual flair is much more on display here. So the camera work definitely was one of the first things that caught my attention.
Yeah, me as well. I definitely felt like, especially during the dance sequences, to echo what you said, I found them incredibly disorienting because they are so tight into whoever is dancing. And I think, stutter. I really like that because we're not getting the full picture because she's not really either. And I like that then by the end dance sequence, that's the first time we're really getting a full shot of the stage and her amongst her fellow dancers. I thought that was like a really cool touch that we didn't get the full sequence until that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think he really commits to like this style for the whole movie, which is impressive. He like knew exactly, this is the tone I'm going for. This is the visual style I want. And every shot, every scene is going to have it. And and along with that, he commits to the idea of Natalie Portman is our vehicle. It is a first person movie in that sense, our first person narrative in that sense, that we are only getting what she is getting, which I think adds to the disorientation and the unreliable narrator point. And it's like, I like when they set up a rule like that and they stick to it. I think it makes a really cohesive story. And that's why it wins awards, right? Like when you have a good script and then you're able to execute on that stuff, like you're a good director, you know, congrats.
Something I really enjoyed about this film outside of, just the camera work, I really like the costume design, the hair design, like the overall character design. And I think it's so simple, but it's so effective. Her hair is always pinned up so tightly and so perfectly. Like, because she's so high strung and wants to be in control of every fucking detail. So even down to each individual hair is like pinned in place. Compared to characters like Mila Kunis's character, Mila Kunis's character, where she has like her hair is up, but it's in a much looser. It's so relaxed in comparison. And then of course there is the color scheming that they do where Nina is always in white versus what is Mila
Lily.
Yes,
She plays Lily.
Lily is always in like very dark characters, and then everyone else kind of has a mix of the two.
And don't forget, Lily then brings her a black outfit, which she then puts on over her white, leaving her.
Yes.
Like the black outfit's just a shell at that point to her.
And then the first time we see Nina wearing like mostly black or like an all black shirt is when she's throwing out all of her stuffed animals.
Good catch.
And like pitching that purity child side.
Any thoughts, Andrew?
Just in general with like I'm impressed with the casting choices that he made throughout the whole film. I think I never before and really since haven't seen Mila Kunis do anything to this degree. It kind of made me disappointed that we haven't seen her sort of like expand her ability. She's she's a fantastic actress. I mean, it's a great performance. Winona Ryder was cast really well as the sort of aged out dancer. Vincent Cassel, I'm a big Vincent Cassel fan. He was such a smarmy asshole, so good.
I totally forgot to bring him up, so I'm glad you said it because I was like, oh,
that was my next point.
Ocean's 12 guy, and I was like, I love him, and then I was getting more pissed off that he's not in more stuff in the U.S. after watching. Yeah, I mean, because
he's got a good career in France and has done some really great work over there, but he hasn't gotten his chance to shine in Hollywood per se.
Yeah,
it's time.
I felt every scene he was in extremely compelling. I mean, I think his character in general begs a lot of... There's a lot of questions
He's so well written in this.
Yeah.
And because you call him a smarmy asshole, Hanna and I, the whole time, both of us were like back and forth.
Well, it was clearly like, this isn't appropriate. You can't do this. But at the same time, like, the things he is saying to her, as inappropriate as they might be, they kind of are bringing out the side of her
that he wants to bring out. Yeah.
That he wants to bring out for the role, and that she hasn't been expressing and benefits from channeling and expressing.
And I think you say all that, and the reason we're also conflicted is because like we can't tell, is he just, it's inappropriate no matter what, but is he doing it to get the performance, or is he trying to get with her? And like by never having him actually like seal the deal with that, you're kind of like conflicted. Like, yeah, he's a kind of a bad guy, but like it worked, and like he didn't really do anything that over the top. Like it was not good, but like could have been. I'm saying it could have been worse. And again, that's why I feel like very conflicted while watching. And then I was like, I know this is not what the point of the movie is, but like we couldn't help but be back and forth. And maybe that's, you give Vincent Cassel credit for that as well.
Yeah.
From like, I still kind of like him, but
yeah.
I did keep thinking as I was watching it, I kept taking notes saying like, this is clearly a pre-Me Too movie. Like,
yeah.
I don't think you could make this film today and make some of the choices with that character being so sort of
for sure.
brazenly sexual and
Yeah.
like he's definitely guiding her into moments throughout the film.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I said? I was like, well, he's just French.
Matt,
That was a joke, though. I'm sorry. I was like, he's just a French guy.
Say that.
This show's not going to trend well in France.
But yeah, no, his performance was so good. I was watching it and I was like, I wonder if anyone on Andrew's show nominated him that year in supporting. But I also was like, I don't remember what else was up. But I was really feeling his performance and, you know, that character in general and what that elicited.
No,
it's really
the fact that we like talk about it so much, it's a really interesting character. And I feel like you said, he's not as bad as, say, J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, right?
Yeah, but J.K. Simmons wasn't. I don't know.
Was. I mean, J.K. Simmons was straight up abusing children.
Literally blatantly abusing children. But I would say I don't want to compare.
No, I understand. And also, I shouldn't. I'm not going to get in trouble for talking about a fictional character, whether he's a creep or not. He definitely is a creep.
Yeah,
but I think it's like there is clearly in the filmmaking a decision to try to make us feel conflicted, and that's my point.
Yeah,
and it's okay to feel conflicted because that's definitely what the director wanted in the situation. So
I will say he does answer the question of is he a creep when he then uses the little princess line on her at the end.
Point.
He seals the deal of being a creep.
Yeah,
I don't know if Aronofsky meant it or if it's just something I was thinking about in sort of a meta term, but there's obviously sort of a larger aspect in like the thematic elements of this movie and like the lengths you'll go to be perfect and to give your best performance in an art form or whatever. And like there are plenty of film directors throughout history who are sort of like that Vincent Cassel character where we all know them as assholes, but they've kind of gotten great performances out of people and have made great films. And so like you're alluding to, there's kind of that, it's hard to wrestle with the person versus the art they're making because sometimes the art comes out really great and you have to deal with the consequences. Like Roman Polanski comes to mind where it's like, this dude has made some of the greatest films in American history. And yet he's also undeniably done some
piece of shit.
Awful things and isn't allowed in the United States. And it's like, okay, you got to wrestle with that, you know, as you think about filmmaking and stuff. So Castle's character is definitely a larger embodiment of that type of person and what they can do to art.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I like that because like I've been trying to get Hanna to watch Chinatown forever. And I'm like, it is Polanski, but like, and I know you love, The Pianist.
The Pianist is like heartbreaking, and Adrian Brody obviously the movie is incredible, but then you think about he wasn't allowed to be in the country when he won the award for Best Director. Like,
yeah, I think it's okay to interact with the art still, though. You can still like the art. I think that it's also fine to choose not to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Like I don't think he's benefiting from you watching his movies at this point.
I'm illegally streaming his movies anyway.
Exactly. So like, and in some ways, I think it actually you can add to your discussions about
definitely art. And I think that is something like you have to keep in mind. I think inherently when you're engaging with something that's made by a piece of shit, it does inform how you interpret it, but it also informs how they made it. 100%. I mean, like, we know everything about J.K. Rowling now, and then we watch Harry Potter, and you're like, oh, well, I see it now that I know. And then you're like, oh, and she's also homophobic here, and she's
but then you also
anti-Semitic here, and, you know,
but then
whatever,
you also see the stuff that she writes where it's like, how did you get from that to where you are now in terms of, I'm talking about, like,
that lady's a question mark.
Yes, it's like you're a very conflicted person, clearly, and
hot mess express.
Look internally, please. All right, but not the Harry Potter episode, which we will probably do eventually. Oh no, we did. Well, we rated all of them.
Yeah, and we'll brought up her piece of shit behavior.
We'll cover Alfonso Cuarón's movie at some point. So.
Well, because it's iconic.
I'm counting that as a horror movie.
Which one is that?
The third one, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Azkaban, yeah, the best one.
The best one.
Oh, by far, yeah. Yes. The style, it's so good. I love that movie so much.
You were a fellow ball knower. So, you know.
Man knows ball.
It's Gary Oldman, like, just, you know, chef kiss for what Oldman's doing in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Chef kiss for what Kieran is doing in that movie. I didn't know you could, like, make
honestly,
a...
the whole movie, chef's kiss all around, besides,
Yes.
like, a couple of the kids, because they're young and figuring it out. But other than
My
that,
favorite on-screen time travel, I would say, in that movie.
It's a bold
been said
take,
before.
but it's good.
Sorry, I'm off topic.
Anyway.
And Black Swan's so good, so I shouldn't get off topic.
yeah, bitch.
Anytime I do a podcast guest spot, we go way off topic, so I'm used to it.
That's how it
Maybe
be.
it's the energy I'm bringing into the room. I don't know.
There's just so much to say.
Well, if I get any opportunity to talk about Prisoner of Azkaban, I will. Or Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2, we talk about that on the show a lot.
Best Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe one of the best superhero movies ever made, if not the best.
unquestionably.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Knows ball,
Yes.
as I've said.
Yes.
I think Andrew and I have similar taste, I'm realizing.
Yeah. For
Yes,
sure.
yeah. I've learned that too from listening to some episodes from you guys.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I feel like a kindred spirit bond between the two of us, Matt.
No, this is great. I love it. Okay, sorry, Hannah. Get us on track. Yeah, nothing?
Anything else we really like that we haven't touched on? I know we've touched on, you know, some of the directing and the camera. We talked about the performances, the costume design, all that jazz.
There's an elephant in the room that I don't know if either of the two of you looked into or are aware of, but I'll briefly mention it because it was kind of brought to my attention. There's a film out there from 1997 called Perfect Blue by a Japanese director, Satoshi Kon. It's an anime film. I'm not an anime guy. I would never claim to like have any expertise in that genre, but I have a wonderful friend, Britt, and she is an anime guru, and she's the one I turn to. And she's like, you have to watch Perfect Blue before you do Black Swan, just so you can like see Aronofsky was obviously influenced by this film for a couple of his films, and I think that there are people who are anime lovers who take exception to the fact that he kind of doesn't own up to how much of an influence that movie Perfect Blue has had on Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan. And after watching it, I was like, whoa. I was like, he's almost blatantly ripping off a few specific things about the movie. And from what I understand, he actually bought the rights to Perfect Blue to use a specific scene in Requiem for a Dream. There's a bathtub scene, and he basically, like, if you look at, you can go on YouTube and see like a shot for shot, side by side, and he's obviously ripping that movie off, but he kind of doesn't take credit for stealing it. And so there's this weird dynamic where he's sort of borrowing art and not really crediting it, and so it's kind of uncomfortable because when you watch Black Swan and you watch Perfect Blue, you're like, he's obviously pulling source material, but he's sort of hiding from it and trying to like claim it as his own. So there's a little bit of a confliction there for me too.
So that's really, really interesting because Perfect Blue has been on my list for years, and every time I've tried to watch it, I haven't been able to find it, whether it was on streaming or a friend of mine's other methods. So like
that was the route I took.
I have literally gone to like, I'm watching Perfect Blue tonight, and couldn't get it to work, so I haven't tried in a while, and now I'm gonna have to. And maybe you'll be interested, but I know the bathtub scene. I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't realize the connections to Black Swan, and I'm excited to cover it. So, or excuse me, watch it.
Yeah.
The lead character in Perfect Blue, I don't want to mispronounce her name, but I believe it's Mimi, and it's almost like he's sort of playing on that name with Nina, Mimi. He's sort of using like the double letter, and there's a lot of similarities there, and it's just so it was. I'm glad I watched it beforehand, so I could somewhat like compare the two side by side. But again, I'm not an anime guy, so I'm not gonna lay claim to having any real expertise in that. But it was just something that I thought was an interesting reference point.
And did you like Perfect Blue?
Loved it. Big fan.
Okay.
I can appreciate anime for what it is, even though it's not really my wheelhouse. I'm a fan of some of the Miyazaki works like Spirited Away and House of the Flying, whatever the house movie
House
is
Flying
that he's
Castle,
gotten.
right?
House of the Flying Castle, Grave of the Fireflies. There's some great anime works. It's just not something I gravitate towards myself.
No, I understood. Like I don't watch a ton, but I've like watched my fair share of things that like pique my interest, and that was one. And I was trying to convince you years ago to watch Perfect Blue, and we never watched it. So you probably now maybe you'd like it. Put it on the list.
It's not my genre either. I'm pretty avoidant.
She's so avoidant. She's never given.
Hey, I watched all of Death Note, so
good point.
Why don't you shut up?
There's some really. You watched a little bit of Attack on Titan. We'll give you that one.
Yes, sir, I did.
But
I'm scared to dive into anime too much. I feel like it's such a deep well, and I'm so out of my depth, and I'm so behind that I'm afraid. There's like this great series called Evangelion Neon Genesis.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
People have been like,
it.
you have to watch. Okay, I keep getting recommended it.
I was going to recommend it to you, and I was literally thinking about it because I was like, well, if you want one, I watched it for the first time recently, and I will recommend it. But it's short.
At the top of my watch list.
It's short. You watch 26 episodes, then which are all like 30 minutes, and then a movie, and then you're done. There's a bunch of other bullshit that you don't need to worry about. Well, some people will tell you need to worry about it. I'll tell you, watch 26 episodes, watch the movie, you're done.
Him and his friend watched like 10 episodes of the show in a day.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
and he's watched it like 3 or 4 times, me only one time. But if you're a fan of any surrealist, any kind of even like Lynch's work, I would say there's something in it for you.
Okay, you sold me on it with Lynch.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh my God, we're really off topic. I don't care. It's more like Twin Peaks, where it feels kind of normal and then things start to break down around you and like reality does change versus I think some of Lynch's movies that are basically surrealist the whole time, because it's a deconstruction of a genre. So it like for the first half of the show is very stereotypical with like these moments of like things feeling a little bit off until it finally kind of the levee breaks late in the back half. So, but that's it. I won't say anything else about it.
I know my friend Britt, who I referenced on this, I know she's listening right now because she told me she was very excited to listen to this. She's the most diehard anime person I've ever known, and she's got like a smile right now listening to this, grinning ear to ear, because she has told me to watch that so many times.
Well, I hope the Lynch connection convinced you. So.
May he rest
also,
in
rest
peace.
in peace. My God. We said that on our last episode we recorded too.
I think we're going to say it on like every episode
I'm really
for the
upset
next
about it still.
2-3 months, years.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Lynch?
So I haven't watched all of them. Of the movies I've watched, oh, this is hard. Maybe Mulholland Drive and like Sleeper Pick. Oh, I'm discounting Fire Walk with Me because that probably would be number one. But maybe Mulholland Drive, maybe Wild at Heart. But Fire Walk with Me, all of
I love
season,
Wild at Heart.
Yeah, all of Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is my favorite show, and I didn't watch that I watched it for the first time last year.
Why do I feel like we talked about snakeskin boots to express my individuality on the literal last episode?
We probably did talking about Wild at Heart.
Yeah,
because we talked about David Lynch.
I'm gonna break your heart because I'm a Lynch fan, big fan. I've seen all of his films other than Fire Walk with Me because I've never been able to get through all of Twin Peaks. I've gotten into season 2, and for whatever reason, I can never get through season 2. And I've heard people tell me season 2 is like the least successful of them. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm dedicating myself this year to breaking through and finally watching all of Twin Peaks because I owe it to Lynch to do that.
You need to know that. So season 1's really, really good. Season 2 is kind of funky because the studio forced him to finish the mystery. And so Lynch got pissed off and phoned it in for a little bit. It's still good. It's just like he basically like walked away. And then so it gets like really it's not bad, but it's like pretty mediocre. And Diane Keaton directs what's considered the worst episode of the show, which is kind of funny that it's Diane Keaton. And then from there, Lynch starts getting involved. And by the time it finishes, it's really, really good again. And then they canceled it. So think about it that way.
And that's what leads to the return, I guess.
Yes. And then, they make the movie, which is the prequel, which then got booed at Cannes Film Festival because people were not happy with what he made. It's phenomenal. So
I did watch that, yeah.
And then the return comes back 25 years later and also takes place 25 years later from the show. And the return is some of the best TV I think I've ever watched.
Yeah.
So I'm selling everybody on the show right now. I haven't been given the space to until now.
Matt, you've been given the space
You're welcome.
for half of our fucking show. You brought it up.
That was the first time I've really liked
my dude. He probably brought it up in at least a quarter of the episodes last year.
It was a big deal to me, all right?
Yeah.
But that's how I would say. Yeah, season 2 gets tough. but it's still not. It never gets bad. It just gets a little weird, and then I think it gets
Okay.
good again.
I'm gonna simmer this down.
Yep.
Favorite David Lynch movie before we move on? Did you say
For me, it's
yours?
Eraserhead.
Ooh, I mean that's
Matt
the one I
hasn't
haven't
seen
watched.
just-
that
it's-
one. But I
Okay,
have.
and I've got a kid. I've got 2 kids, and like being a dad, seeing Eraserhead hits different. It's just
I
it
can
fucks with you a
imagine.
lot.
Yeah,
Oh.
like thematically, it's
Yes.
yeah.
We plan on watching him soon. We have a
gonna
tradition
cover-
of watching it with friends of ours, so I have to like wait and watch it with certain.
We're actually
people.
going to cover Eraserhead for the pod because I've been telling Matt about this fucking movie since I first saw it at age 18, and it's taken him quite a bit to follow through.
I'm sorry,
so-
I like David Lynch, but I just haven't
It's
watched all his
time,
movies.
my dude.
Okay,
The
Well,
baby.
if I've-
It's so scary.
if I've earned enough good grace and you want me back, I'll happily come back for Eraserhead.
oh, we could do that.
All right.
Well, let's get back to Black Swan.
Yep.
I apologize, but I'm having fun.
Is there anything in Black Swan that we did not like?
For me, nothing worth talking about. I think we covered our whole Perfect Blue thing, and now I'm excited to watch it for that reason. But I don't know. Is there anything that you had a problem with?
No, I just
don't-
had to pose the question.
I don't think It's not. There's nothing worth complaining about. Does that make sense? I'm sure I could find something.
Maybe
but-
Andrew does.
Yeah,
so
Andrew, got
hold
anything?
on.
It ages surprisingly well. I watched it once in January of last year for my pod, and then I watched it 3 times in the last week, and it just, I don't know, like I don't feel like it's deteriorated in any way over 15 years. I feel just as strongly and passionately about how well it's executed and crafted and acted, and so I don't have any negatives other than the Perfect Blue situation, which is its own thing. But in terms of what the film's doing itself, it's perfectly wonderful to me.
Love that. Yeah, it is interesting how like sometimes, and you've said this on your show, you'll look back on like an Oscar win or some of the noms and be like, what the fuck were they doing in that year? And this is not one of those moments. Yeah, has definitely aged well. Besides that, some of the stuff couldn't have gotten made in this year because of Me Too, but that's fine. So let's talk about the ending
Oh yes.
and how
We do need
we
to do
interpret that.
Yeah, Andrew, I want you to go first on this. What do you think? I have thoughts. I don't know what happens at the end of this movie, or what do you believe happens at the end of this movie?
I personally take it very literally. That's just kind of the way my brain has always worked with this movie. Is there are certainly movies that I can sort of look at and say, okay, this is not happening or whatever. For whatever reason, I've always found Black Swan to even though the whole movie is setting you up with the unreliable narrator and
Yeah.
she's clearly seeing shit the whole time. I kind of believe that she's actually dying at the very end, and like I'm kind of on board with it being a literal happening, but I can completely understand the flip side of it. If either of you or if people who see it other ways, I just, for whatever reason, I think that it happens, and it's because of the hospital scene with Winona's character when Winona's stabbing herself, and then you realize Nina's actually the one that has done the stabbing when she's got blood all over her hands and everything. And so I kind of just buy into the fact that she has indeed stabbed herself and is bleeding out. And
Yeah.
maybe you can talk me into the other way if you're on the other side.
Well, I don't have like a concrete, this is what I think it is, because I like both readings of it. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, Girly Pop is dead. R.I.P. She really stabbed herself. And then this time around, I was like, okay, thematically, if she's not dead, this is, XYZ. But they do acknowledge that she is bleeding. Like, he says, what did you do to yourself? Which leads me to, like, think, if I ignore that it's unreliable the whole rest of the movie, it does lead me to think, yes, she like physically harmed herself. But then I also think about, she clearly does the stabbing while she's dressed as the White Swan. And then she goes out and performs as the Black Swan. No, nothing, no bleeding. Then she's back in the White Swan outfit, and that is where she's bleeding again. And so when we think about it that way, I see it as more like metaphorical, like she's not actually dead. It's more the death of what was holding her back from being like her true self, and then therefore being able to put on this performance.
So for me, I'm still deciding, but
Same.
So Aronofsky does this thing that I think is really genius and also aggravates me, which is that he has her be unreliable, but then at the very last moment, we kind of get what seems like an omniscient perspective, because we have reacting, and then you're like, well, oh shit, what did happen? But I am going to gravitate towards themes more than anything. And I guess this works either way. But for me, I want her to be alive still, based on the themes I'm taking away from it. I think you could say that it is just the movie is also just Black Swan retelling, where she's mistaken for what she thinks is actually happening, so she does commit suicide. I think that's fine. I don't think that's as cool as a theme of that she is legitimately killing the part of her she does not want to be anymore. And that's what we're getting. And it's not that she stabbed herself. It's that she figures the performance out. She figures out that dark side of her, that sensual side of her. And that is the moment and that's why she doesn't start bleeding until after she gets the applause and comes back in, because that's the moment that side, she's killed it. She's broken off, and now she can go out and be this person she wants to be. And for me, I want the happy ending. I'm sorry. So I'm going to say she did it. She's going to be this new person, and she's going to get out from the grasps of her mother. She's hopefully going to stop hallucinating. And
One would hope.
And she's going to be great. I mean, she might go down the same route as Beth, sad, but like, it's her choice, and she found some strength within herself, I hope.
Yeah, and I think seeing it that she's alive helps me. I think that fits to me better with the overall themes of like the struggle between embracing like who you really all are, parts of you, versus the pressure to maintain that flawless image. I like that better with the themes. Mm-hmm. But every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, she's dead. So I don't know.
I also love, and you Matt, you had mentioned it during your giant sort of summary of the film, but I love that the end is a fade to white versus black.
Yes.
Because you can read that in different ways. You can read it as like her ascending into an afterlife, or like you said, it could be her sort of shedding old skin and taking on a new form. Like that fade to white is a smart creative choice to close the film on, because it lends to the ambiguity of the whole final scene there.
Yeah.
He's pretty mean to the audience in this movie. If you want answers, and you don't have answers. He wants us to debate this. He wants us to feel both ways, which I think is cool. Again, it makes it a good movie. And like, I'm going to project the happiness onto it. But when I say happiness, I do kind of question like, oh yeah, she needed to get out from under her mother's thumb and needed to shed the skin, but also like, she might not have a happy future because her future is Beth. So it's maybe.
We don't know that.
It's like you've broken out from one part, but like,
well, now she has.
You got to keep growing. You can't just.
Yeah, now she has the choice. Like, she's less under someone else's thumb.
Correct.
It's her choice which path she goes down now.
Yeah. And that's completely ambiguous to us as well. And like, you can decide it's both. It's a Schrodinger's Mina, you know?
You're going to have to coin that phrase.
Yeah. That's basically every ambiguous movie, right? It's everything. That's when people debate it. I get kind of annoyed because I was like, there's no debate. It's both. It's what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Unless you're being dumb, then it's what I want it to be, you know? Okay.
Did we have anything more to say that we haven't, already said about what this movie means or is trying to say?
Yeah, Andrew, are we missing any themes? Anything else you're thinking of?
I mean, it's just, we've touched upon it, but it's an interesting character study into just the length with which people will go in any walks of life to reach their perfect end goal, and just the all-consuming obsession that you can have towards anything. And like, I watch this and I can see my own life kind of reflected on screen, and maybe I can think, oh, I'm trying to be too much or too perfect in here, there, or the other. And so sometimes sometimes I can watch the struggle that Nina's going through in her effort to like achieve this sort of higher level, and I can it's applicable to everyday life in an interesting way. It makes this movie oddly rewatchable. Having watched it 3 times in a week, I'm like, I kind of enjoy going back to it. It's not like, even though it's dark and it's uncomfortable in spots, it's kind of fun to go back and pick through it and sort of pull things out that I can use in everyday life.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's very relatable on that level. Especially, like, I feel like I've gone through that journey myself in therapy. Like,
it has that sense of, like, familiarity that makes it a little cozy, but also really scary at the same time. And then you also have fantastic filmmaking, so you're smiling the whole time, and you don't know how to feel. You're feeling everything. Like, I mean, for real, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. It is, like, a familiarity that makes it, like, easy to come back to, and you, like, feel you see yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a mirror. It's a mirror of a movie.
Even in like a little scene when she finally realizes she gets the part of the Swan Queen, and she, like, you know, hustles off to the bathroom and calls her mom. That's maybe the most impactful scene for me in terms of like an acting perspective, when she's like breaking down and telling her mom she finally got the part. And I'm like that one hits pretty hard, because there have been moments in my life, just, you know, significant milestones where you want to like immediately call your loved one and tell them how happy you are. And so that was the scene that stood out for me, where I was like, wow, she's going for it in this movie. And it's more than just like the amount of work she put in on the dance floor or anything like that. It's what she's conveying emotionally in the swings. And that scene really kind of is the culmination of her deserving acting Oscar.
yeah.
I like what you said there. Well, on that note, do we get to rate? Or do we favorite scenes? Excuse me.
Yeah, we can do favorite scenes. I actually...
Was that your favorite scene, Andrew?
It's that one, or it's not because of the titillation of the scene, but I really like the scene with her and Mila and the sort of the infamous sex scene. And it's like, I just like the dynamic of she's hallucinating. She's on Molly at that point. Mila's tattoo is like moving and like there's a lot going on in that scene. Barbara Hershey's trying to get in, and that's a chaotic scene that sort of summarizes the energy level of the film. And so I enjoy that scene more than just like, oh, it's this, you know, really exciting sex scene. It's much more than that, but I think a lot of young boys gravitate towards that particular excitement.
That's the only scene I heard about when it came out when I was in high school.
Right.
Because I was
exactly.
I was a sophomore in high school. Freshman, maybe? No, freshman in high school.
Yeah.
So
I actually watched this movie with my mom when it came out, so I sat through that scene with Debbie. So that was a thrill.
At what age? 14?
14. Yeah. I was like, wow, we're really doing it.
There's the scene where Nina's in her room masturbating and, you know, realizes her mom's there at the chair. Like, it's like, oh God, that's so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the secondhand embarrassment I had for this girl this whole movie.
Do you have a favorite?
I was going to skip the question because I couldn't pick a favorite scene.
That's
personally.
fine. You can skip the whole thing. All right, my favorite, I'm going to be cliche. There is nothing that can beat when they're playing the most famous song from Black Swan while she's in the room, noticing she's bleeding, to then go out and do the dance. But we don't see the whole dance because like the real climax of the movie is her like killing that version of herself. And it's really an interesting choice to take like the most impactful part of the song and to just have it set over her just like looking at herself in the mirror bleeding. And then you gotta love her jumping off that thing. I'm a sucker for some theater, so
hell yeah.
Love that shit. All right. Rate it then?
Right now.
We can rate it. Okay. I go first. I know exactly what I got. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Sometimes you just know when a movie's a 10 out of 10 and I love this. It's not on that level for me, but it is a 9. It's really, really good. So cool.
Tight.
Yeah, well, Andrew, you're gonna go last on this one. All right, Hannah.
Okay. I'm gonna go a 9.5. I really fucking like this movie. I think it's well made on so many levels, but I really struggle to give. I don't think I've ever on this podcast given a movie a 10 out of 10. I retroactively gave one a 10 out of 10, and that was The Witch. But I've otherwise never given that score. So I simply cannot. But yeah, I think it's incredibly well made. I have no complaints. It was up for an Oscar for a reason, and it deserved it.
I agree with you. 10s are hard too. 10s are fully a gut feeling for me. Like what separates a 9.
I mean, I've said it on the podcast before, I read 65, 70 books last year. I gave 2 5 stars. I just like simply cannot. I'm like, wow, you're all great, but you're not perfect. So sorry.
So what are we thinking, Andrew?
Well, I'm very much with Hanna on it's hard for me to give anything a 10. I was pulling up my letterbox really quickly because I think I've rated like 7,000 films or some exorbitant number. And I think I've given maybe 90 of those movies a 10 out of 10. It's just I don't like saying things are perfect. This is in my top 500 that we had talked about earlier. I feel
shit.
Well, so I prepped like 15 pages of stuff and I didn't bother to write down where this was in my top 500, but I promise you, I'll tell you where it is in that list. But I'm at like an 8.6 or an 8.7. I'm a decimal point guy, so I'm teetering close to the 9 level. I'm just below. I'm somewhere in that 8.6, 8.7. You could maybe talk me up to a 9, but I'm hovering in that area.
Well, if we all felt very similar then. We're all like kind of right in that same 9 range.
Yeah.
I try to avoid the decimals, though.
It's too bad this came out in 2010 because if you don't know, 2010 is a stacked year of movies in general with just a lot of stuff. So it's actually not that high up on my 2010 list because there's Inception and Social Network and Scott Pilgrim and on and on and on. There's just a ton of great movies. It's like one of those great years. So Black Swan kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but nonetheless, great movie.
I also kind of like when I write movies for this podcast, part of me is like my horror scale versus my normal scale.
I try to keep
but
it all...
I'd still give it an 9 out of 10 if I'm not going my horror brain.
My scale's complete bullshit and a mess. It really is feel a lot of the time because that's what reviews are.
On any given day, my number is nonsense.
If you look at my letterbox, I think it makes sense, but who knows?
I'm with you though, Hanna, because I try to like grade things based on genre they're in. So like I'll give like Step Brothers for me is a 10 out of 10 in the comedy world. It's obviously not like competing with The Godfather in terms of like quality or greatness, but like I can judge things sort of compartmentalized into whatever they're trying to be. So I'm with you. I try to grade on a horror scale versus a all films totality scale.
Yeah.
That was my issue with From Dusk Till Dawn because it was like, well, this is a 6 out of 10 movie, but it's the best 6 out of 10 movie ever made. So, like, what do I give it?
Yes.
Like, it wants to be a 6 out of 10 movie, and it's really,
so
really, really good at it.
What it's doing.
So, is it a 10 on the From Dusk Till Dawn scale? Because what else fits in that category?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the most From Dusk Till Dawn movie I've seen. All right. Well, on that note,
so
tell us where we can find you again as we wrap this up.
Sure, yeah. Thanks again for having me. Been a real pleasure. I'm humbled and grateful that you would even think to reach out to me and ask for me to do a guest spot. It's incredibly touching. You can find me, handles Rev Almanac, on every single social media platform. I'm very active on the socials, so if you just want to talk movies with me, shoot me a DM. I'm happy to talk to anybody, anytime about anything. And again, you can find the podcast on anywhere that's if there's a podcast place out there, I'm there. Especially on YouTube, I have a video format there as well, so you can watch me. I do a lot of hand talking and things like that, but that's just in my nature. But yeah, I'm out there. You can find me. I'm very active.
Perfect. And thank you again so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We have a long one for the viewers out there, and I'm not taking any of it out.
Oh shit! None of the Twin Peaks talk.
We're getting Twin Peaks. We're getting Neon Genesis Evangelion talk. Like, I don't care. The people need to know.
Okay. All right.
Well, I've been Matt Hanna.
I didn't have a joke again.
No,
sorry. I keep whenever he's like, "I'm Matt," I'm like, "I'm tired. I'm grumpy. I'm excited. This is a good movie. I'm Hanna." He's Andrew.
This is Horror of the Hannas. Hannah's not funny tonight, apparently.
I'm not funny.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you can find podcasts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!